Hello fellow coders. In today's video we will understand the basics of CSS by making a small website which will also be responsive. This video is for beginners, so we won't cover the advanced topics such as flexbox, Sass, animations and so on. Also, we won't cover all the properties of CSS because there are lots of them, but we will cover most of them, which will give you a good foundation and understanding on how things work. I will try and keep this video as short as possible, but I will keep timestamps in the description for specific topics so that you can skip the topics you want to learn in particular. Please be patient and watch the video until the end. Remember, learning a new skill takes time and patience. Also, we have two huge announcements at the end of this video, so stay tuned. If you are new to this channel, please consider subscribing the channel for tutorials in web development. While you are there, click the bell icon so that you don't miss any of our future videos. Don't hesitate to smash the like button, it really helps us beat the YouTube algorithm and produce better videos for all the fellow coders. We will be using Visual Studio Code in all of our videos. If you haven't already, please watch our setting up Visual Studio Code video, link on the screen and description. Alright, let's dive in. What is CSS? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. It is basically used for styling of your web pages. Beware, like HTML, CSS is not a programming language. The main task that CSS has is to make your web pages pretty and user-friendly. It takes your HTML elements and applies attributes to it like text color, a background to make it look better. Let's look at the syntax now. The basic CSS syntax includes a selector, curly braces and property value pairs. The selector is used to target the element that we want to apply the styles to. Property value pairs declare the style that we need enclosed in curly braces. Now we can use different selectors. Let's take a look. There are three main types of selectors that we will use. The element name, where we just declare the element name instead of the selector without any annotations. Then there is class name. Class name is always prefixed by a dot. Classes are non-unique and can be applied to multiple elements. ID. ID is unique and is prefixed by a hash. It can only be applied to one unique element. Let's understand this with examples. In the first example, I want two divs to have specific styling. We will give them both a class of box in HTML. Then the CSS will look like this. On the other hand, if we want to apply styling to just one particular div, we will use a unique ID in HTML and the CSS will look like this. These are the basic selectors. In CSS, you can combine both of them or all three of them or any combination of selectors as you want. Let's take a look at that. So you can do that by mainly two ways. The first one is a selector after selector. So you have selector 1, selector 2 and then the normal property value pair. For instance, if there is a class red which is applied to p and h1 tag, but we want a specific styling applied just to the p tag with class red, the CSS for that looks like p.red. The same goes for IDs as well. Now the second one is by combining the ancestor and the child. If we want to target the class red which is inside a div, we would use the ancestor child selector syntax. The CSS will look like this. The other combination is that we want to apply the same style to two different classes. In that scenario, we can target both the classes by separating them with commas. This can be applied in similar ways to IDs as well. Just use the hash instead of dot. Let's look at loading the CSS into our HTML code now. There are three main ways. The first one is inline, where you write the styling attributes inside of HTML file using the style attribute. This is a terrible idea and is not appreciated professionally. HTML is used for structuring, and so presentation done by CSS shouldn't be added to it. This reduces the reusability of your code, as you will have to copy and paste it to every element where you want the styling. As the CSS is inside the HTML file, it reduces the load speed. This might not be an issue while learning, but in production, this is a huge blow. The second one is using the style element. Here you write all the styles inside a style tag in HTML. So it is still in HTML. It is a bit better than inline, but it is still terrible. Again, if you want to use the same set of styles on other pages, you will have to copy those styles across to other files as well, causing duplicity of code. As it is still in HTML file, it will impact the speed of your website. The third way is an external CSS file. This is the best approach. You write all your CSS code in a separate .css file and link it to your HTML by using link element. You pass the URL of the file in the href attribute. This poses good reusability, as you will just have to copy one line of code to apply all the styling to all the files needed. This doesn't impact the load speed, as the separate CSS files can be optimized by minimizing them. That's all the theory and syntaxes we need to know to dive into coding. So as promised, let's start building this website. Switching to the coding screen now. So we are building this website. I'll keep this open in another tab. Also, I've switched to Brave browser, which is very similar to Chrome. Unlike Chrome, Brave uses up less RAM, which enables me to record this video without my laptop burning out. Now, I've already downloaded the assets that we will use in this project. The header file is the main scenery picture that you see on the website. This has been downloaded from unsplash.com. The other one is the small love illustration, which has been downloaded from undraw.co. Both the links are in the description below. Let's start by creating an index.html file. As you can see, I'm using the VS shortcuts. I would encourage you to do so as well. We now have the basic structure of our HTML file. If you haven't already, watch our tutorials on basics of HTML. Link is on the screen and description below. We will be using live server extension to see live changes side by side. To use it, just click on the Go Live option down below. That will open up the blank page for us. Let's make some changes to see if it is working fine. Now let's add some code. Let's start with H1. Let's see Inline Css in action. We'll add the style attribute with text color red, and you can see the text color change to red. Now let's see the style tag example. We'll just add a style tag in the head section of the HTML and target H1 element and maybe change the color to blue. Yeah, so you can see that in action. Alright, now let's go with the most preferred approach, External Css File. We'll remove all this code, we'll separate all of our files in respective folders. So a CSS folder for all our styles, JS folder for all our JS files. So let's create a CSS folder, and in that we'll add style.css. Now let's write our styling for h1. We'll target h1 and give it a color of green, but on saving it doesn't give us anything. Why? Because we haven't linked our HTML and CSS files. So let's do that. We'll link CSS using the link tag, and we'll change the URL now. You can get to the root by pressing dot. If you don't see these suggestions, just press Alt space and it should give you the suggestion, and there you go, it works now. Now let's focus on some fonts. So this can be done in CSS by using the font family property. Font family can take several values using the fallback system. Let's select the Arial one here. So how the fallback system works is, if a browser can't load Arial, it will try to load the Helvetica and then the sans serif and so on. But we want to apply this font family everywhere in our HTML code. So we'll target the body element here, and we'll cut it and paste it to body. Now this will apply the font family to all the text elements inside of body tags in HTML. Now let's add some paragraph text to our website. Another handy shortcut to add dummy text is to type lorem and either press enter or type lorem 20 or 30 in this scenario to have 30 number of words. It seems like the font size is quite small, so let's increase the font size now. Change the font size to 20 pixel. Now the default size is 16 pixel. Now let's give it a line height of maybe 1.7 em. Now you would be wondering, like, what is px and what is em? We have used two units of measurement here, px and em. Px is a fixed sized unit, while em is scalable according to the font size. So it will be 1.7 of 20 pixels in this scenario. So if we change the font size, it will change the line height accordingly. Alright, now let's take a look at the border property. So we'll target the P element here, and we'll start with border top. This takes three values separated by spaces: width, style, and color. So we'll give it 5 pixel, solid, and blue. And then we'll target the border right, 3 pixel, dashed, and let's give it brown. And then border bottom, and we'll focus on border bottom now, and same 5 pixels, solid blue. And then border left, and that should be 3 pixels, dashed, and brown. So that's the 4 sides of the border. So this is the long approach. Now let's look at the shorter one. If you want the same border on all the 4 sides, you can simply use border property with the same 3 values. So we'll just give 5 pixel, solid, and red. Now notice one thing here. Even if there are other styles given above the red color. So like we have declared blue and brown, and still it takes the red color. Why so? Because CSS takes the top to bottom approach, so it will apply the last styles that are mentioned. Basically, the last style overrides the ones above them. Let's look at padding now. We will again take the longer approach first to explain the individual things. So we'll start with padding top 15 pixels, padding right, and we'll have 10 pixels, padding bottom 15 pixels, and padding left 10 pixels. So this is the long approach. As you can see, if you want, you can declare all the 4 sides separately, or if you have, like top and bottom the same and right and left the same padding, you can simply do padding and then just pass 2 values. So 15 pixel, the first one is for top and bottom, and the second one, the second value, is for right and left. Or you can do is you can just pass 1 value for all the 4 sides. There you go. Now everything has 15 pixels padding around it. You can also pass all the 4 values in the padding property. 4 values separated by spaces representing all the 4 sides, starting from the top and clockwise. In CSS, whenever we pass 4 values representing 4 sides, it is always clockwise, starting from top. So it is top, right, bottom, left. Same goes for margin. And let's see margin now. We'll only see the margin top in this scenario, but it basically works the same as padding. Now let's understand the box model of CSS. Basically, the spacing provided inside of the element. So this is the content and this is the padding. So the spacing between the content and the border is padding. The border is on the edge of the content plus padding, while the margin is outside of the element, that is between our element and the other elements. Now that we have cleared the basics, let's start building our website. So let's start with the header first. So we'll add a header element, and I'm using the VS shortcodes again. So header #main brings you a header with ID main, and same goes for the classes. So we'll shift the CSS demo inside of header. Maybe let's unwrap that with div.container, giving it nice structure, and we'll wrap the paragraph as well inside of our container div. Alright, you can't see any changes yet because we haven't applied any styles to the container and the main header. So let's do that now. So I'll remove the previous styling that we have applied. I'll keep the padding margin explanation in the comments so you guys can reference the code again and play with it. Let's give the container class a width of maybe 70%. So we can give it a specific pixels width as well, but I want to make it responsive, so I'll give it in percentage, so it will take up 80% of the available width, and we'll give it a margin of auto. So what will this do is it will shift all the text into the middle. Now I can specify a certain specific percentage or pixel here for margin as well, but I exactly don't know what is going to be the width of the browser of the user. So what I do is I let the browser decide by giving it a auto margin, so it will have equal spaces on both of its side. And then let's give it an overflow of hidden, so this won't let text go out of our screen or something crazy like that. It will just hide all the overflowing text and everything that is overflowing basically. Now let's target the main header here, and let's give it the background. Let's give it a background color to make it stand out. Okay, that's bad choice of color there. Yeah, that will do for now. So in our example we actually have it it is basically transparent, but I won't make it transparent right now. We'll look at it later in the code. Now you can observe there's a small slight white spacing around the header, so that is basically just the default margin around it. So we'll remove it by targeting the body element and setting the margin to 0. And there you go, it's edge to edge now. Ooh, we're getting somewhere. Now let's add some navigation to our website. So we'll have nav and hash. Give it an ID of navigation, and we'll have UL and 3 LIs in it, so each with a dead link. So you can declare a dead link by giving it a href hash, and if that will be a dead link, like if you click on it nothing will happen. We'll copy paste it twice there, and we'll type home, about, and contact. And that doesn't look like a good navigation, right? So let's do some styling magic on it. This is where CSS kicks in. So let's target the main navigation first. So I decided to wrap the UL inside of container as well to give it good proper width that we are giving it. So this basically gives the whole website a good good white spacing around it. Alright, let's start with giving it a color of white. Not a good choice of color there, but that's fine. I'm just trying to make it how it is in the main thing. So now let's target navigation UL, our unordered list, and we'll give it a padding of 10 pixels all around and a margin of 0. And we'll set the list type to none, so that will make the dots disappear. And I decided to give it a background color of black to I can't risk you guys going blind looking at my bad choices of colors. And then we target the LI in the navigation, and now we want it side by side. So for that, what we do is we give it a display of inline, so that will set all of them side by side. There you go. So that looks much better now. Maybe I'll increase the padding. Okay, that works. So that gives it a padding of 20 pixels around it. The text should be of blue color. What is this sorcery? Never mind, we'll figure it out later. Let's focus on navigation A now. So we're focusing on the links. And let's give it a text decoration of none. That remove font size 11 pixel. Alright, yeah, that is surely not getting targeted now. So something is wrong. We need to go to our debugging mode right now. That's what I've done. That is not a sorcery. If you guys notice that, comment in the section below. I'll fix that later, so you just get the time to recognize what the issue was here exactly. Now let's see, you saw that if when you move the mouse over in our original website, it changes color. So for that we use A and colon and hover. So this is a pseudo selector, colon hover, and we give it a color of RGBA. So what is basically RGBA? RGBA stands for red, green, blue, alpha, and it can range from 0 to 255. So 255 being the color. So if the first one is 255, it is red, second one is blue, so third one is green, and the last one is the opacity. So that can be from 0 to 1. Alright, you can see I fixed the issue now, and I just wrote it outside of the link tag, and thus it was not taking up all the link stylings that we were doing, and now it works fine. It works completely fine now. So basically now we want the logo and the navigation in the same line. Alright, so how are we going to do that? First of all, what we'll do is we'll shift all the logo. Like in most cases, the CSS demo that we have written is going to be a logo of the website. So we'll shift that inside of the navigation, and we'll give it a class of float left and the navigation a class of float right. Now what is floating? So it's how it sounds, it just lets the elements float next to each other. So if you set the float left and float left in CSS, it will allow the element to float on the left hand side, and in the same way if you mention float right, it will allow the element to float on the right hand side. But hey, you can't see where the navigation is gone. There's some issue. It's there, it's just down there, and it's in white, so you can't see, but it's just shifted down, and that is because we haven't applied the styles. Like the structure of HTML is not right. So let's do some debugging here. So let's do that a bit better. Sorry about that. A bit better, but still not what we want. So yep, let's move that inside of the navigation, as I actually wanted it inside the container, obviously, to give the perfect width. And we'll give the float class to the UL here, and let's see that in action. And we don't want two containers around there, so we'll remove one of it because that will do weird things to us. Yes, that's kind of nice now. Alright, so it still needs to have a margin on it to have in line with the CSS demo text. So we'll give it a margin now, maybe 10 pixels, a bit too much. No, that's fine. Yeah, I missed the PX. Yep, that's looking good. That's what we wanted, right? I'll change the about to about us just to match the original website that we have in here. And yeah, you've done 30% of your website. Finding it good? Alright, let's move on to the next section, that is the main scenery image. And so for that we will go back to our HTML and we need to add some section here. So we'll add section and name it main. Oh no, we already have main, so we'll do it body this time because that's the main body of the website. We'll have in h1 it says nature is beautiful. Oh, so we missed the container element here. Cool. Now that's still not what we want from the text, so first of all we'll set the background image that we want. So we'll have the property background image, and we'll give it a value of URL, quotations, and the path of the image that we want. So here we'll have 2 dots and then slash, select the SX folder and the header.jpg. So it's quite small because we haven't given it a height, so let's give it first. Let's change the color to white so you can see it's still there. Now let's first set the minimum height that we want, and here we are going to use 100 VH. So what is VH? VH is the vertical height of your browser, so it will take the 100% of the available vertical height. And now we'll set the background size to cover, so it fits perfectly in the space that we have. Looking better, right? Yeah, I like it. And let's give it a background position of center, so center on the x-axis and y-axis, and thus the 2 values. Doesn't make a difference, but sometimes it does. It's good to have there, Now let's target the H1 and shift the color thing there because that's where it belongs, the text color. Now I would like to use some different fonts here. So what we will do is we will use Google Fonts, which is a free resource of fonts that you can use. So for that we'll just search Google Fonts in our browser, and this is a really good resource if you don't already know about it. You have loads and loads of fonts here which you can use, and you can even change the text here, and you can visualize how it will look on your website. So we'll just find, I meant Slothers here, sorry for that, but yeah, and we'll find the one that we want, and there it is, 80 cents, and we'll just click on it, and we want the regular one, so we'll select that style, and you'll see this pop up. Go to embed and copy the link tag on the top and paste it in your HTML inside of your head element. Remember that, you need to do it inside of head element, and we'll copy the font family thing to our CSS, and we paste it there, and let's see that in action. And there you go, you see we have the font applied there. It's so easy, right? Let's increase the font size to maybe 15 bits, 50 pixels, 70, yeah, that looks better, yep. And maybe we give it a margin top of 20%, and a bit more, I don't know, yeah, it seems good. And let's give it a text align of center, center the text. And that looks pretty good. Now if you notice, we have a text shadow behind it, which gives it a bit of 3D effect. So let's apply that. So we'll use the text shadow property, and we'll pass first the x-axis, then the y-axis, and the color of the shadow. Yep, that looks better. Yeah, that looks better. Let's increase the letter spacing a bit. 2 pixels, I don't know more. Yeah, that looks better. Yep. Now if you notice, you can see that the background image is a bit darker in the original website that we're trying to build. So let's do that now. You can, that is kind of optional if you don't want, but I like to keep the background a bit less distracting, by giving it an overlay, so that the text is more visible, because our main pitch is going to be the text and the image is kind of secondary, but that's just my opinion. So let's give it an overlay. We'll have a div of class overlay and we'll give it the width 100% and the height like the same height as we have on the body section, so 100 bh, and we'll give it a background color. That kind of shifts it there, so we need to give it an absolute position. Yeah, that's better. And a background color of black to just show you. I'm not going to have it black, but yeah. Let's give an opacity of 0.3. Yes, but there's something odd. The overlay is on the text as well, which we don't kind of want. Just want the overlay on the image and not the text. So I don't think we need the position absolute right now. We just have not structured it correctly, and yeah, that's it. And that looks so much better now. You have passed the 50% of our website building thing, so kudos to you for getting this far. Now let's add the section beneath the image. So yeah, I'll just give it an ID of content and we'll grab all of that inside of our section. We'll have an h1 with the text title. Yeah, it needs to go inside the container. Alright, let's style that a bit. I feel like it is a bit misaligned. No, that's fine. Yeah, that's just me going paranoid. Now we have the sidebar kind of thing there, so let's make that. For that we'll be using the aside element in HTML. We'll give it an ID of hash sidebar. We'll have an image. We'll have the path sx sidebar.png. Remove the source set here, we don't need it right now. I don't want to confuse you guys. And the alt text is if the browser can't display the image, it will display the text. Oh, that's so big, but we'll fix that in styling. And beneath that we have h2 saying we love you, because we do. Trust me, we do. And we would give it a class of image so that we can style it. Let's go back to CSS and let's style the sidebar first and give it a width of 30%. The image still looks big. We'll have another, we'll just wrap the other bit as well in another section, because we'll need to give it width and make it float side by side. So yeah, we wrap that inside a section as well. Yeah, these styles are applied, and yes, that is 30%. The image is not taking the width, so let's focus on let's give it a width of 100%, so it will take the 100% width of its parent. And let's take the border right, just to give it, a separation between both the sections. Sorry, we didn't mention the style and the width. Remember, it takes 3 values, and yeah, that looks better. I'm pretty happy with the left hand side of it. Just to have it in center, and give it a padding of 20 pixels. Yeah, that looks better. Now we want the other section to float side by side with our sidebar, so let's style that. Give it the width of the 70%, but you see that is not working. To make it work, we'll have to mention the box sizing to border box. So what it does, when it measures the percentages like the 30% and 100%, it will take all the paddings and margins and borders as well in that calculation. Usually the margins are not taken in the calculation. Because we didn't give it a float. Silly me. Yeah, and there you go, it works well now, and we'll give that a float of right, so it stays on the right. Yay! But it's still stuck to the line, the border there, so we'll give it a padding. 20 pixels. Yeah, that looks good. Maybe 10 and 20. Yeah, I like that. Yep. Now let's experiment with letter spacing. We'll give it 2 pixels, seems good. Maybe 1.4. Yep, that looks good. And maybe increase the font size of type 2. Alright, let's add a button there. So that's the default button that you get in every browser, but it's kind of ugly. Let's give it a class and apply some styling to it. We'll change the background to transparent, and we'll give it a border of maybe 3 pixels solid, and blue for now, but I'll change that later on. And I'll have font sizing to 30 pixels and padding of 20 pixels. Yeah, that's big enough. And let's give the color as well to blue, that it matches the border. Yep. Now I want the same color as our illustration there, so I'll use the ColorZilla extension and grab the exact hex code and paste it instead of blue so that it matches that. And yep, that is working nicely. And let's see the border radius now. So you can give the borders a radius around, like, now the trend is to have curved borders and not it's a controversial topic, but yeah, as you like it. If you don't, you can just skip this part. And yeah, that works for me, but it's a bit big. So first of all let's see text transform. So you can set it to uppercase, lowercase, or capitalize the first letter of the whole thing. And yeah, that looks much cleaner. Maybe I'll reduce the padding a bit. Now if you can see, the cursor is still the arrow, so we'll change this to pointer so that it brings the hand kind of cursor, which tells the user that you can click it. So yeah, that's done. And what we can do is we want the hover kind of animation. So I'll be using colorhacks.com here, and I'll grab the RGB code from here. This is a very helpful website. Now you can get the complementary colors, triadic colors, everything. And we'll use the pseudo element again, so button colon hover, and we'll have the border color set first. We'll take text color first, RGBA, and set it to maybe 0.5 opacity. Yeah, 7. Doesn't have to be too light. So, and we'll have the same thing for border color as well. Now let's add the footer to our website. So let's add footer and give it an ID of footer, and we'll have the text, standard text, copyright, and then the copy symbol, and we'll use the that brings the copy symbol, by the way. There's loads of them, and I'll keep the link in the description for all of them. And yeah, we'll style it now. Maybe give it a background color. So that it matches the border line up there, and here, and maybe some padding around it. Yep, and font size, will decrease the font size a bit, maybe. Yeah, and make it align center. I'll like it a bit smaller, and let's make it italic. So for that we can use text decoration. No, sorry, my bad. You can use font style for that, and we'll just select italic. Yep, that looks pretty good. Let's give it a bit of margin at the bottom so that it doesn't stick to the footer. Yep, that looks good. Now as you can see, our website is kind of responsive, but it's not completely responsive. So we can add the media queries. That's what we call to focus on different screen sizes. So it goes like @media, and then the screen type, so that it's screen, and there's an and the max width. So any screen that is 600 pixels or less will have these stylings that we mentioned. So let's focus on the sidebar first, and I want the width to be 100% and maybe no border, so we'll just set the border to none. Now you can there's a handy tool for you. If you go to inspect and click here on toggle device toolbar, you can set different types of devices to test. So as this is 375 pixels wide, so it fits our criteria, so it's 100%, and we'll also make the right text 100% so that it fits nicely. And yeah, that looks good. Now the header text is a bit crumbed, so we'll give it a line height. Maybe we'll do body h1. We'll give it a line height of maybe 1.3 and should be fine. Yeah, that looks good better. So yeah, our website is mostly responsive now, apart from the menu here. So now let's focus on the transparent header menu, and you see it, it's fixed there when we scroll, so it stays there. And you see this in most of the modern websites. So let's focus on that now. But before we dive deep into the header and making it stick there, I would like to explain very briefly the position attributes. And let me know in this comment section below if you want a whole dedicated video for me explaining all the position attributes in detail. So for that, we'll take a div of id position and a span with example 1 text and another span with example 2 text. So there it is. Let's wrap it with containers, but maybe not. Leave it. We'll target the position div and maybe give it a border so that we know the whole div, we can recognize it. And maybe give it a height of 100 pixels, maybe. Yep. Yeah, that looks better. Yep. And we'll give it a position of relative. So by default, the position value is static. And now we want to aim the first span. To do that, we will use a pseudo selector called first child, because that's the first span in the position div, and we'll give it a position of absolute. So what absolute does is, when you give it an absolute position, you can give it different properties like bottom and right. So what it will do is, it will set it to the bottom and right of the parent. So 10 pixels from the bottom and 10 pixels from the right. Same way, if we focus on the second span, by using the last child this time, because it's the last child, and we again give it the position absolute. And give it a top of 20 pixels and right of maybe 30 pixels. So yeah, that's how the absolute works. Absolute is dependent on its parent, and it gets out of the flow of the DOM structure. Now let's look at the fixed element, how the fixed property works. So we'll add another div and we'll give it just the id fixed, and it's there. Let's style it so that you can see it in a better way. So and we'll give it a position of fixed, and we'll give bottom 0 for now, be left of 20 pixels, and we'll give it a padding of 20 pixels and a background color so that it's visible to you guys. Maybe green or green yellow. Yeah. So now just notice on that, like even if we scroll, let's make it 10 pixels. Yeah. So even if we scroll, the element stays where it is. So you have seen this in many websites. If you remember, there's a chat icon there, that's the mostly used element. So that is styled by fixed element. Alright, I'll again comment all of these out and keep it inside of the code so that you can reference it while you're learning. I'll give the link in the description below where you can download all the code. And we'll remove all of it. And okay, let's focus on the transparent header now. So let's go back to CSS and find our main navigation element. And we'll give it a background color of transparent. And let's see what that looks like. There's no significant change. And why is that? Because it still is not overlaying on the image. So for that, we'll give it a position of fixed, and now you can see it is overlaying on the image. So basically it is taken out of the DOM structure, so it can overlap on other elements. And we'll give it a top of 0, right of 0, and left of 0 because we want it from one end to the other and stuck to the top. That looks pretty good. And there's your transparent header now. Now let's look at it in a mobile view, and oh, that's bad. That's what you're thinking, right? So we want a hamburger. That's what all the tech guys call it. So the menu icon that you have on your mobile screens. So let's do that. First, let's give the navigation a class, the class of hide phone, so that we can target and make it hidden on the phone. And we will add a div and add a class of show phone, so that it's only visible on phones. And for the icon, what we will do is, no wait, let's first just add the styling bits, then we will move on to the icon. So for hide phone, in the media query we'll set the display to none, so that it is hidden, and for show phone we'll display it as a block, so that it's visible in the show phone. In a normal scenario we'll make it display none. Now you'll see that the other menus disappeared, but we can't see the icon because we haven't added it. So let's add the icon in. Maybe I'll give it a margin top. It's too stuck to the header on the mobile view. Maybe 50%. Yeah, that's better. For that, we'll go to another free resource, Fontawesome. It's a huge library for icons, and you can use it as you want, and it's very easy to use. Just go on the website and click on start for free, and you can just enter the details, and it's just as simple as next. Enter your email ID and you can create the kits. I've already used this, so we'll go to kits and I'll use my kit, and we'll copy it and have it in our head section. We'll search for the menu icon here. Maybe we'll search for hamburger. Well, that makes me hungry. And we'll open up this, and you can just click on it and copy the HTML and just paste it in your code. So easy, right? Let's save it, and there it is. Now it's still stuck to the CSS demo text because we haven't given it the float right class. Let's make it float right. Good. And let's give it a styling, maybe we'll give it another class just to separate from the show phone class so that we can use the show phone for other things. Let's give it a class of menu, so we can give it proper margin, height and size and everything. Now the beauty of Fontawesome is you can use it like normal text, so you can just set the font size and it will increase the size of the icon. So let's make it 22, and same way you can change the text color and it will change the color of the font of the icon. It's very handy, you know, it's pretty cool. We'll give it a margin of maybe 20 pixels. Yeah, no, not really. Just the top. Yeah, that looks better. And maybe I'll give it a nice border around it. So border 1 pixel solid white. And border radius maybe 4 pixels. And padding about 5 pixels. 5 and 10. Yep. And maybe change margin to 20. Yeah, that looks pretty good. There's just one last issue. Now it looks similar to what we have here, but there's one last issue. If we scroll the mobile view right now, the menu is still, you know, stuck there, and if we go to the right section we can't see it. So we don't want that on a mobile view. We don't want it stuck as we scroll, so we'll just set the position to back to absolute. So we'll focus on navigation and set the position to absolute. Yep, and that fixes it. There's our website. You've gotten so far. So are you proud of yourself? Yeah, you made a pretty good website on your first go, and it's pretty good. Alright, now time for the two main big announcements. So we're starting to do pet shoutouts on our YouTube channel. So for that you can just go to Instagram, our other account, which is known as Barking Divas, and you can DM us with your pet photos and we'll give it a shout out on our channel. And also there's a big giveaway coming along on our coding Instagram, so stay tuned for that and keep an eye on that. And if you haven't already, go and check out both of our Instagrams, links in the description below, and make sure to follow, and we have some good content there as well. So if you have liked our video or do you have any suggestions for us, you know, don't hesitate to tell us in the comments, and hit the like button if you like this video. And you're watching Code Sloth. Thank you all. If it doesn't work, turn it off and on again. Peace.